So our second speaker of Christians Unite this Saturday is Shelli McClintock. How are you doing this morning?
I'm really good. Thank you. It's
Good, good.
somewhat sunny here in Lincoln, hoping the clouds will lift a little more and we'll have a beautiful day.
Yeah, Lincoln, Nebraska, right? So
Yes.
now I've told you the other day that I was lucky enough to go to a football game, there. Everybody should experience a football game at Nebraska.
Agree.
So I was able to go there and watch Nebraska play Oklahoma State one year with one of my good friends, Steve Turner. We flew a helicopter out there, went through some weather that we really should not have gone through to try to get there, but we got there. So that's what athletes do, right? We push it to get to where we want to be. So it really kind of leads us into your story, and let's talk a little bit about you. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into all the amazing things that you do.
Yeah. Well, first off, I am a mom of four. I have four kiddos. They're a little bit older. My youngest just turned 15 and my oldest is 26, almost 27. So I would say probably the most physically stressful years of being a parent are over. And now you move into their, becoming adults, and we're starting to tackle those new areas. So that's been quite fun. I work alongside a couple of my kiddos at work. So that's been a huge blessing for me.
Yeah.
I am a owner and VP of partnerships at a company called Arise, where we do exo performance and sports bracing for athletes.
Mhm.
And so it's very fun. I get to work with high level influencers every day, and the nation is my territory.
Yeah.
So there's really never a boring moment until COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then who thought sports would stop? And so it's been actually really great because we've been able to really step back and really lay some foundational things that maybe we hadn't laid in the partnership team yet. And so it's been really, really good for us to go back and just nail down those details. And then it's also been a blessing for me on this end because I've really been able to launch what I've been wanting to do with the accountability coaching for women.
Yeah.
And so it took away all my excuses that, I'm in an airplane all the time and traveling the nation. It was so hard for me to, at midnight when I got back to the room, to really want to work on it. And then all of a sudden there went my excuse. So it's been quite neat to see how it's all worked out.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about that, but it's really pretty cool. That you do travel around, and so there's some commonalities. Like right when we first started talking, you're like, oh yeah, well, I do work at Wake Forest University, which is 5 miles down the road, from my house. So, and at UNC, which I'm a Tar Heel. So, all these different schools and everything. So talk a little bit about just how, cause you talk about part of your story is that, with your business that you were in, you had to, sell friendships. You had to build this foundation, and talk a little bit about that. Cause I think that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah. So that's kind of funny. It became, at the office when I get back from the road, they would say, do you go out and sell friendship again? And it was just always funny. We would laugh about it because at that time we had no product for athletes.
Mhm.
It was coming down the pipeline and we were starting to field test it, but we didn't have it to sell. And so really what we had identified my key role would be is just going out and connecting and building a big network of individuals and teams interested in what we had to offer them, so that when it did hit the market, we had people ready to go. And we had high level athletic departments willing to field test some of our products when we weren't even to beta testing. So we were joking with the University of Florida that they were the alpha to our beta test. We were excited to do it because they believed in what we were doing, and they believed we had an answer for their athlete. And that's when I really started to realize that that was my sweet spot. And so that was really, really it's been a great 3 years in that for me.
Yeah. So there was some growth process, right? That got you to that point before you got there, right? That you had to go through as a person. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I mean, not only that, but when you're just going to walk into a room and basically put yourself out here and be like, here I am, here's who we are. We know you've never heard of us. I know I don't have a physical product to sell you today, but believe that we'll get there. It just really took me having to go back and really start to identify who I was and really gain that confidence. And I started doing like just daily little challenges for myself, where I started a new gym where it was filled with extremely well-known, powerful women in the Lincoln area, and it intimidated me. But I knew to get better that that's what I had to do. I had to surround myself with people that were already to where I knew I wanted to get.
Yeah.
And I had to start traveling on the road on my own and conquer fears.
Yeah.
Land in big cities. I'm from Lincoln, Nebraska. Land in big cities and say, okay, I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to figure out how to maximize my time and how to get there. And it was just a lot of just daily challenges I decided for myself that I was going to take on. I was newly divorced.
Yeah.
So being a single mom was not in the script. And then to be able to say, hey, to do my job well, I have to leave my kids and go travel. And so it was just a bunch of little challenges, I guess, that were sent my way, but just every day we work together to conquer one more thing to be able to get to where we are now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, getting divorced and becoming a single mom, because I know that's a big part of the foundation of who you are today. And that's a big part of your growth, and even the backstory. We can go back even further than that about, your story. So if you want to start back early on when you were young and all that, because that's kind of a foundation for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So super amazing family. My dad was a high school basketball coach, so I was raised on the basketball court. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. And she did that so that she could help my dad, with the finances, but then be home with us in the summers and then in the evenings. And so that's just really how I was raised, was really involved family, really close-knit family. All of my brothers and my nieces and nephews were all just super tight. Faith was a huge, huge foundation of our family. And so it wasn't exactly the best idea to become a 17-year-old mother. And I made a mistake at that time, and that really altered my life. And in that moment, I decided I was going to get married, and we were just going to make the best family that we possibly could. Yeah. And so not conventional, but yeah, that's where I started my senior year of high school. I was a mom, finished out my senior year. I brought my son home from the hospital actually on my graduation day. Yeah. So yeah, that was my story. And so I really didn't work. I did a lot of odd and end jobs, but I was a stay-at-home mom. I was determined to raise my children. And at that time, I felt like that's what God was calling me to do, was be home with them. And I actually even attempted homeschooling because my one son just loved to learn. And I decided that probably wasn't my cup of tea, but just tried everything and just really, really loved it. And then determined that I really wanted to get into the workplace. Yeah. And my dream job was an ESPN sideline reporter. And I just decided I didn't want to go to school that many years. So I started being mentored by a motivational speaker and in the business world. And that's kind of when my own different career path took off. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a great story. Kind of what you went through to get to where you are. And I think a lot of moms and dads, not just moms, but moms and dads, are figuring out that teachers earn their paycheck, and homeschooling is not so easy. I've heard so many people talk about that. I think the appreciation for teachers right now with COVID-19 has just been amazing. That not easy.
Yeah. I'm so thankful my 15-year-old is a self-starter and very motivated.
Yes.
But this would be probably a different story today if I had a kindergartner and a second grader.
Yeah, it'd be just amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about this. So now you're out, you're on your own, you're working. You make mention of, you worked for a motivational speaker, but you also had a job that you also did during that time at nights.
Yeah. Yes. So at the time, my husband owned kind of like a remodeling business. He didn't do the remodeling, but he did all the interiors. And that was when it took a huge dip in the market, and the housing industry kind of crashed. Yeah. And everyone was just starting to lose their companies. And so while I worked for the motivational speaker, it wasn't quite enough for us to pay our bills. So I took on a job of cleaning out grocery bins at night. And that was not one of my favorite jobs. I
Yeah.
have to be honest, but it taught me so much, because it just taught me that your needs can be taken care of if you're willing to do anything. But then regardless, like, you can use that time to really motivate you. You can listen to your podcasts. At that time, podcasts weren't huge, but I did some audibles at that time, and I just really listened. I listened to a lot of worship music, and I just really found that time of knowing that I'm willing to do whatever it takes
Yeah.
to hit, our dreams and our goals. And at that time, I didn't know it was going to be our company Arise. It didn't exist. I didn't even know my dad and my brother were interested in starting a company.
Yeah.
And so I just kept going every day. And it's crazy when you're doing that, to be able to think that this is going to lead to some glamorous,
Yeah.
great thing, but yet I always knew it would. And I always knew that there was something more. I just didn't know what that something more was.
Absolutely. It's part of the show. I think that's amazing, because I think people need to understand, we all go through those ups and downs. When we go through those ups and downs, you can work, you can make things happen. And that's what you were doing, not
Yeah.
the most glamorous thing, not exactly what at one point in time, I was, flying air medical, but I was also working, one of the hardest things I've ever done, remodeling. My buddy had a remodeling thing. And if you've ever ripped out hardwood floors, my gosh, that'll kill you,
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not easy. Or ripped out a ceiling, with all the stuff falling down on you. So it's,
Yeah.
but you do what you have to do. Right. And it
Yep,
does
exactly.
teaches you that work ethic and helps you, get to the next step. So now you start working with your family. And let's talk about what one CEO, and that CEO is somebody close to you, what a CEO told you that
Yeah.
really kind of motivated you. Well, it didn't motivate you, but it kind of, at first it was kind of reverse motivation. It kind of hurt,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a little bit, and I will get into that really quick, but I love my family, but I didn't ever know I'd be in business with them.
Yeah.
And you try to all of a sudden learn a career, learn a new company, figure out medical billing, because that's what we were doing at the time. Something completely foreign to me, definitely not my sweet spot, but willing to do it for anything to grow this company. And then you're learning how to have your older brother be your CEO.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just don't really, I guess maybe I was prepared my whole life for that, because he's always really been a leader, even in our home. So I always saw my dad and my brother lead. So that to me wasn't unique that I had to follow that. It was just like, all of a sudden I'm an owner, but yet I'm being given directive, and then I'm being given directive by my brother. And then not only that, I'm the emotional one. I know, shocking.
Yeah.
Empathy is one of my top strengths, and it can be used in huge, huge ways, because I know how to read the room with empathy.
Yeah.
However, empathy can be a huge basement, because I could be sitting in a business meeting and cry.
Yeah.
And, my poor brother is sitting here thinking, what do I do? Like, and my dad, like, this is someone we love, but this is business, right?
Yeah.
I had to grow up, and I had to really learn how to be a professional. But when we went through a lot of changes, and we are creating Arise, and we are starting to try to figure out where all of our sweet spots would be, he made a hire that at the time, I'm great with it now, but at the time I was like, why did he choose that person to promote? Pretty young, not a ton of experience in the outside world, in our company experience, but not externally.
Yeah.
And I was kind of baffled. And we had a lot of discussions about it. And I went to him and I asked him, and I'll never forget this comment. And I was actually talking to them about it yesterday, but he said, you know what, Shelli, you are a 4, and we could maybe make you a 7. And I just remember thinking, I'm a 4, not to sound cocky, but I had never categorized myself as a 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm cleaning out grocery bins and paying bills and, leading the path for my kids and their new reality. And I'm a 4.
Yeah.
But what I realized he was saying when I walked away and I really thought about that, was he was saying in that skill set, I was a 4 and maybe could become a 7. And I am so thankful he knew that, because I wouldn't be in my sweet spot today. And not only that, I'd be doing a job that I would not be great at, and I would not love to go to work every day. And so with that, the challenge was, then where can I be a 10?
Yeah. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I absolutely love that. You know, Melinda's listening, and she does a lot of the website and a big part of Convene. But one day she told me in a conversation, she said, "Hey, Matt," she said, "listen, you do, Matt, you do what you do best, and you get out of our way, right? And if you'll get out of our way and you'll let everybody do their job, and yeah, you can give your directive, you can say what the big vision is, you can talk about the company and set that culture, and we can communicate about all that. But I don't build websites. You know, with Convene, I don't know how to write code.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can say I want it to look like this, I want it to be this, but I need to get out of the way, let everybody do their job." So yeah, your brother's comment was spot on, and that's basically what she was saying to me. You know, if you want to talk about building websites, I'm probably a 1. You know, so it's that's not what I do.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's so important. And it's so important in ourselves, and to know that and to do that self-discovery, because I guarantee when you find that spot, you're going to love what you do every day. And
Yeah,
it might not be in your role right now, right? Like, it might, meaning you've got to switch some things up, but take the time to at least start discovering who you are.
yeah,
And that, yeah. So we added in, and I'm not promoting this, it's whatever people like to do, but our company personally uses Gallup strengths.
mhm,
And that was so eye-opening to me, because I always knew, like, I could read the room. I always knew I have this crazy intuition that
yeah,
almost drives me crazy, because I hope most of the time it's wrong, but
yeah,
it usually isn't. And I started realizing all 4 of my kids are so vastly different. And why? Like, we are a sports family.
yeah,
Like, we stand on the sidelines and we watch my dad's games, and we go to every Nebraska sporting event that we can
yeah,
go to. Yet only, one of them was really into sports. Another one was really into cheerleading, well, track. So that the sports, but meaning like the basketball and the
yeah,
football, the ones that we raised them in. And then total speech, debate,
yeah,
data analysis, and then a musical theater girl who
yeah,
just sings like crazy. And I never understood why my kids were like that until I realized my top strength is individualization. And what I love to do is drill down to each person and say, what makes Matt Matt?
yeah,
And what makes Grayson Grayson, and what makes Bria Bria. And
yeah,
I never knew that that's what I was doing
yeah,
until I understood how I was wired.
yeah,
And then I also understood, the weakness, or what they call as the basement, and all of those, and then trying to overcome that, so something doesn't become a glaring
yeah,
blind spot in your life. But that has just been so crucial to me, because I start to understand why I click with some people and maybe not as much others. But then I think that's why I was able to go. Don't think, I know that was
yeah,
why I was able to go self-friendship,
yeah,
because I got to know that person, and I
exactly.
didn't even know I was doing it.
Well, you know what? You and I, we could have a whole show on this, because what you're talking about right now is what I really love to dive into, and what I consider, one of my core expertise. But I'm just like you, with people, is reading people and understanding people. And like, as a coach, as a sports coach, I believe that it's important as a coach that I know each individual kid as each individual kid. What motivates them? And I'm going to tell one quick story, because
Yeah,
it's
great.
just a great story, and it's a sports story. So I coached soccer a number of years ago. Well, I still coach soccer, but although I played baseball and football and basketball growing up, but my son was a college soccer player. But I was coaching this young girls team, and we were in a game that we were playing, and it was close, but it was the team in our league that was above us. And a lot of the girls on my team, they felt like they had been wronged by being on my team, or being on the third team instead of, the upper team. So we were beating them 3-1, right? And so there's one girl on our team that was a great goalie. And so one of my best friends, Mark, was sitting across, and his wife was at another field with their daughter playing. She was playing soccer. And so Mark, I sub Kinsey out. So I bring Kinsey out, and they all hated to play goalie, hated it, but she was a good goalie. And so Mark tells me this story. He's on the phone with Denise, his wife, and he's like, "Oh no, Matt just pulled Kinsey out," and he sees me talking to her, and he sees her head down, and he can see that she's kind of distraught. And the conversation between me and Kinsey was, "Hey, Kinsey, I need you to go in and play goalie." And she's like, "Coach Matt, I don't want to go play goalie. You know, I don't want to go play goalie." And I'm like, "Kinsey, you are the best goalie we have." I'm like, "So I need you just to help us close it out." And I'm like, "You're the one who can do this." And I lift her up. I'm just like, "You're the one who can do this. You got this," and all that. And so she goes to the bench, she gets goalie gloves, and she comes out, and Denise is going, "Oh my God, I can't believe Matt's putting her in as goalie." And Mark's comment was, "No, it's going to be okay. I can tell, just because of the way she ran onto the field, because she ran on with confidence." And I lifted her up, and she ended up making some incredible saves and closed the game out. But
Yeah.
it's how you treat people, and understanding that each of us have an individual personality. And I love that you said that, because we have to pour into people for who they are.
And how many times we try to change, well, if you always get asked, well, maybe you don't, but if you could tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be? And it's how many years do you spend like trying to alter so you don't offend this person, or you maybe don't say this person, or you're the right date for this person, so
Yeah.
I'm going to become this. And it can't last, because it's not who you truly are. Now there's things in our lives we can improve. There are times that I speak without thinking, and I need to keep working on that in my life. There's times I tell way too many stories, and I'm in a business setting and I'm telling stories, and it ends up being stories about my kids that maybe they didn't want me to tell on their
Yeah.
behalf.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
right.
And so I still have to learn, but the core of who I am is who I am.
Yeah.
And so many years just trying to like fix who I was when it wasn't broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just needed to be discovered.
Yeah. So you in the second book that we're talking, you said 6 years ago, you took time to be alone. Uh,
Yeah.
Time really to talk about that, time to find, really what was
It
going on in
almost
life.
forced on me, because at that time, my ex-husband actually had 50% custody. Now I have full of Bria. But at the time, I was a mom at 17. So I had babies in my house from 17 up. So I was married for 22 years with 4 kiddos at some point in my
Yeah.
life, and their friends. And we had a nice house on an acreage, and friends came over and played, and the cheer team came over with Alyssa, and the neighbors came over, and it was never quiet ever.
Yeah.
And then you go through this divorce and you move into a 2-bedroom apartment, and your kids are gone half the time, and it's like I'm literally stuck with just this person.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
And so many people I see, like when they're making huge changes in their lives, just want to stay distracted.
Mhm.
And especially see this with people who are newly divorced or separated or out of a long dating relationship.
Yeah.
And they just are trying to keep so distracted. And there's been so many conversations where I just look at them and say, if you just take time to be alone, you are going to discover so much. And now your foundation is going to be set to where when you do, approach that dating or a new job or whatever that situation is, you're going to know who
Yeah.
you are. You're no longer going to compromise that.
Yeah.
And, so many times when I talk about negotiation, although it does mean paycheck, it also means just your life, your
Yeah.
value. What do you want? And so many times, and it's funny because I get a little passionate and people think I'm mad, and it's not. It's just, but I'm like, so many times people sell themselves short because they don't even know where to start or what to look for. And
Yeah.
it's so many little things that if they just did, they would know it. And it just fires me up, because I don't like seeing people come to work selling themselves short. I don't like seeing my kids selling themselves short.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah. So being alone, was extremely painful. Having to do holidays by yourself for the first time was not something that was fun for
Yeah.
somebody who loves people and loves family. But our families are married and our families are in different parts of the country. And my parents had to go back to my brother in Indianapolis. He had just had a new baby. Like, they didn't need to stay here for me. I was a big girl. I could handle that.
Yeah.
But it was hard. It was really hard. But I'm like now so thankful I had that, because now when I go on the road and I meet so many coaches, they're away from their families most holidays.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it stinks. They're kind of used to it, but it stinks. And now I know on holidays, the first text that I'm going to send out are to those coaches, because
Yeah.
I know they're on the road by themselves and
Yeah.
I know how it feels. And hopefully my kids have realized through that. So when we start, when we do holidays, we do try to invite people who maybe don't have anywhere else to go to show up
Yeah.
and come with us. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But it's just, I'm so thankful. And I'm futuristic thinking, so my brain's always going. And
Yeah.
so for me to sit and be still and be in the moment and be present is super hard.
Yeah.
So then you put me in a little 2-bedroom apartment and I can't even get away from myself. Like, a lot can happen in that.
Yeah.
But for me, it ended up being a really hard but wonderful thing
Yeah.
that I needed to go through.
Yeah, that's incredible. So a lot of self-discovery, right? That you weren't
Yes.
expecting that you were going to have to go through.
Yes.
And, that's not always easy. It's not always easy to be able to do that, but you transition through that, which is incredible. And I think it's incredible. What is, and you already talked about it, but I just want to go back to it. You sold friendships, define that, because that's incredible for somebody who's in the business world. I think it's extremely important for somebody in the business world to think about this, because in a sense, what I do as well is with Convene is I do what you're getting ready to talk about, because it's such a connecting and collaborating site and all that. So talk about this, because I think this is wonderful.
Yeah. So I almost feel a little guilty saying that I sell friendships, because, okay, here's the people person in me, right? That my people pleaser side is, I don't want any of my friends to get on here and be like, she sold me. Like, are we not friends? You know what I mean? So I struggle with that. But the essence of that is, I would walk out of meetings and I would have new friends to text on Christmas and tell them Merry Christmas. Like true to the core friends. And not only that, people that when they found out I was going on the road, they would send emails out in front of me, letting their buddies know that Shelli is coming and you need to listen, because this company is going to do things differently.
Yeah.
And so and my nephew sat me down and he just said, how do you do this? Like, when I need someone from so-and-so or this place, or somebody who knows. And he just started challenging me, like, how do I know how to do that? And I really didn't know how I knew to do it. So I really stepped back over the last year and I started writing things down as I was traveling, because I have so much time on airplanes. And I started like just really self-discovering what I did to learn how to do this. And I actually came up with like my own little blueprint, which is funny. It's called Power of Connection. But there were significant things I did years ago to prepare me for where I am now. I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
But I think it's my individualization too. Like, your clients have the answers.
Yeah.
Your clients know where you should go next, but you have to listen.
Yeah.
And so many times people in sales, I don't consider myself a true salesperson, but I view myself more of a networker. But people oftentimes in sales go in with the answer and go in to tell you what your pain point is, and they don't stop more than 1 second to listen to what the client needs. And It's crazy, if you just sit back and you watch the room, you will see an athlete that's hurt that could use your product. You will see an athlete talking over here that maybe they're talking about their career choice that you can kind of start building a relationship with. If you really observe the room, I shouldn't say it's not difficult, but it's my sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
It starts to be a 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I love about my job. I love that I'm not an ESPN sideline reporter, but I get to stand on the sidelines
Yeah.
and still, our athletic endorsers, be there by them and encourage them and
Yeah.
kind of be a second mama to some of them when they are going through rough times, and they trust us. And
Yeah.
I think that's very unusual in business, that they truly, truly trust the company that they work for.
No, I love that. And Grayson just wrote power of connection coupled with the law of attraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I
Yeah.
think it really is. And so I think we're so much alike. And in this, I love that you say that, because I feel like that's my sweet spot too, is bringing people together and just connecting with people. I went into this one meeting one day, and this lady sat down beside me, and I hadn't really even, I introduced myself, and she sat there, and we were talking for like 5 minutes, and she turned to me and she goes, "Hey, you're one of them." And I was like, "Oh, what did I do?" She
Yeah.
goes, "No," she goes, "You're one of them." And I was like, "What do you mean? Well, I'm one of them." She goes, "You're one of them. You're one of those people that everybody wants to talk to." And I was like, yeah, I mean, and that's not a bad thing. And that's one of the things, if I'm being honest, I mean, that may sound like I'm coming across as arrogant or cocky, but that's one of the things actually that I am most proud
Yep.
of all of the things that I believe in myself, that people trust in me and they feel like they can talk to me. And,
Yeah.
and I think it's the same for you. You go in, you build relationships, and you build that trust right up front. You build that trust. And that is so key.
Yeah. And it's that one thing where it's like, I'm going to go in, I know I am the best at what I do.
Yeah.
And there's nobody that can do it better. Meaning for me and Arise, like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
me. And I feel so guilty saying that sometimes, and even feeling that. But it's like, when you're operating out of your strengths, you should feel that every day. I would hope that, my daughter's theater teacher thinks she's the best out there. If not, I'm probably going to go look for the best out there,
Yeah.
because Bria loves what she does, and she, I think, deserves the best out there.
Yeah.
Another thing about connection, the story came to me, and cut me off if we don't have time for it.
Oh, we're good.
What I love to do is figure out where people need another person and how you can help. And one thing we can do at Arise that I love doing is with our endorsers. Maybe someone who isn't as well known might get connected with someone who's a little more well known, and they'll help one another. Well, I was introduced to a Paralympic athlete. He's actually in Nebraska. He is third and fourth on, I think, the 100 and 200 in the U.S. and the world. Their Olympics just got postponed because of COVID, so now he doesn't run for one more year. He's actually a rancher in Nebraska.
Yeah.
I meet this guy, and my daughter and I, because she works alongside me, Alyssa, we went to watch him run on the track. And he looked at me and he said, "I think I could get first or second if I just knew how to start. If I could just get off the blocks." And I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't know anything about running. And all of a sudden I looked at Alyssa and I was like, slap. This guy who I've been introduced to, who lives in Lincoln, Nebraska, is one of the best speed trainers ever. And his specialty, helping athletes get out of the block.
Yeah.
I sent him a video, and in 1 second back, he said, "I will come help him free of charge," just because of what his story is. He has an amazing platform, an amazing story. And I should actually introduce him to you guys.
Yeah.
It's a huge form. I just thought about that. But within 1 second of watching him, he already knows how to take those few seconds off. And it was just how he was holding his blade.
Yeah.
And it's that simple. And it just happened to be, one person who knows another. And now I went back to the Arise team and I was like, you guys think I'm such a nerd, I know, but this is like Christmas to me.
It is.
You just gave a gift
that
you didn't even know you could give. And I was like, they always laughing. And I was like, another Christmas story.
No, I think that's beautiful. Let me tell you something that was good. That happened yesterday. I know we're getting off on track, but we're telling stories. It's really good. So on the link, I had 2 meetings set up for the Entrepreneurship Night. I interviewed a lady named Tandy Caraway. What she does is she helps students get, former teacher, but she helps students get full scholarships, helps them get scholarships, having been a teacher and working in that arena. So she wants to start a community inside of Convene that is like a resource for K-12 resource, educational resources. And so I had the Calendly link up, where people can, everybody's using Calendly now. And so right on the backside, I have Anthony McCauley. So this was set last week. I mean, this is a God thing. So she sets her appointment right on the backside. When that appointment ends, Anthony sets his appointment. Well, Anthony has a group called Males of Distinction. He works with males that, don't have a father figure in their life. He has an incredible backstory, but he also has a thing where he has partnered with somebody, and he takes people who are in school that are behind, and he has a program that he puts them through to catch up. And so they do out of school work, they go through computer work, they're doing all these things. And yesterday was one of those moments for me, because I'm talking to Tandy and I know what's coming. And I'm like, Tandy, I need you to stay on here. And I said, I'm going to ask this person to come on just a little bit early. Well, Tandy lives in Texas. Anthony lives here in North Carolina. But the best thing that happened is I connected the two. And I just sat back and listened, because they're doing so much good for people, for youth, and they're doing the same thing. And they just started going. I didn't even say it, I just sat back, and Anthony was like, Matt, how do you do this? I was like, I didn't do this. I mean, I just connected y'all. I just, collaborated with y'all, connected y'all. I said, but y'all made the appointments. I was like, this is above me. This is God bringing y'all together, because y'all are both on the same missions in different parts of the country. And it was really cool.
Yeah. Because so many times in our busyness, sometimes we forget just to stop and look. And I've met some of the neatest people just by walking by them randomly in the airport and them asking me a question. And had I not have had my head up and my eyes looking, I would have missed some of the biggest connections I've made, which were just through randomness, to be very honest.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? I think I love that too, because that happens to me all the time, where I just end up talking to somebody and then we're connected, one of my best friends who's watching, Eugene, the way I met him is through a friend of mine. Eugene drove him as an Uber driver. And then my friend called me and said, hey, you got to meet this guy. And now Eugene and I have been really good friends for like the last 3 years. Just incredible, stories like that. So let's jump ahead and let's talk about the business and how COVID-19 has changed. We already kind of got into that, but so we've talked about, the stuff you do with your family and that business, but let's talk about what you want to do and the coaching and all that. Cause I think this is important. We just talked about this before, bringing people together and bringing women together.
Yeah, sure. So I was actually, the background of this, I was on a flight, of course, going for a rise, and I happened to be connected with a gal that I used to work with, who was starting her own network marketing company. And she's just super energetic and super fun. And she was asking me thousands of questions. And I just said, Aspen, do you ever get to that point where you're doing so much and you're already working so many hours, but you feel unsettled? Is it because we don't have joy, or is it because God is just really like calling us to do something more? And she goes, God's calling you to do something more. And through that, she connected me with a lady that was able to kind of mentor me through my thoughts just in the business world. And I just kept saying, I don't have like a huge email list. I really don't have a ton of social following, like many friends as I have out there. It's not necessarily in the social world. Yeah. And I just said, I really am feeling called to work with women, but I don't even know how I'd get it started. And she just said, the way you did your other company, one step at a time. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I know how to do that. Yeah. And so really what I started to do is I started to dive into issues and pay attention to things that kind of made me get excited or almost frustrated in a way. Women issues came up. And one of the things that I noticed were so many people were willing, after they decided to stay at home with their children and then their kids went back to school or whatever the case, or, maybe a income switched with their spouse and they went back to work, that they were just taking whatever job came. And they didn't even really think about, where should I work? How much should I get paid? Where do I want to start? Didn't even have resumes. and their social media was from 10 years ago that should not be on there now, things that it's like, take it down. And so many little things that they were doing. And I started realizing that I entered the workplace on my own in my own way to create my own value. And I didn't even realize at the time that that's what I was doing. And if I can do it, other women can do it. And who better to teach them than someone who's been through it? So that's really what I just felt like God was laying on my heart. Obviously, single moms to enter into that, because so there's like 3 different courses. One is just re-entering the workplace. So I said it is define your comeback. Like, what's that going to look like for you? And let's put together a series. It's going to be one-on-one coaching. Let's coach you through that, and let's get you the comeback story that you want.
Yeah.
But then another one as a single mom is those boundaries. I mean, we need to know what to say yes to, and we need to know what to say no to. And my kids, we have so many quotes and whiteboards in my house and calendars and all of that. But we have to stay on the same page, because we are all coming and going in so many different directions. And it would be really bad if I forgot to pick my kid up from school one day.
Yeah.
Or if I decided to book a client meeting and leave and forgot that she needed to be picked up, So we do a lot of conversations, but through that, I've really, really been able to drill down as to how you can stay balanced, and yet how you can still have boundaries. And 2 of those, that's just very interesting. And so that's another 12-week course, because I think it's so many little things. My daughter lives on her own. She's 25. And I'm like, Alyssa, you just put away your clothes at night. It would take you 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, if you just organize your leads when you're out on the road at night for 5 minutes, it's done. Otherwise we have these huge stacks and it becomes a huge project. And so just really teaching, to me, just things that can be very simple that can really transform the direction that your life or your career is able to go, because you're no longer going to be late to work, because you actually have organized your life.
Yeah.
And then the last one is skyrocketing your career. So for women who are in their career, they're liking it, but they just feel like they're just never. Our little community that we're starting is called Glass Kickers. Yeah. And it's just because we don't want, why does there need to be a glass ceiling? Like, there doesn't. Like, kick it out of the way and start creating what you want your career to look like. And if business owners are on this, if you're not looking for your employee's sweet spot, you are missing so much greatness.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do it, that's fine. But another company will, and they will steal them away. Yeah. And we have so many people in our company that we've switched from position to position, and now they're in their sweet spot and they love what they do every day. And I'm so thankful we didn't just give up on them one time and say, well, they stink. Well, maybe they just aren't a detailed person and they need to be more in a role like I am, or you're out talking to people. Yeah. So that's really what I felt God has been calling me to do, is just be somebody that ladies can come to. Our stories resonate, and then walk through that next stage of life, because when you're starting it, it seems pretty overwhelming and pretty impossible. Yeah. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, I've been doing this for 8 years. I can't believe, but I'm so thankful that I started. And I started by giving my resignation to the motivational speaker that I adored with no plan B. But I knew that God was calling me to do something. And I knew if I had that safety net, I would never do it. Yeah. I walked in one day and I said, you're not going to believe it, but I'm going to give you my 2 weeks. I love everything about you. I love everything about this job, but I just feel like there's something more. And he honestly didn't believe me at first that I didn't have another plan, but I didn't. I just knew that I had to take that step.
Yeah. That intuitive thinking, that intuitive feeling that you had, you knew that you had to do the right thing.
Yes.
That's so important. And again, we go back, what we're talking about, is that, you went through all that you went through. You have a story that you went through, but I can tell you, because I know some of the people that are listening and on here, guess what? They've been through your same story. They've walked exactly where you have walked, and they are successful because they figured it out, Mm-hmm. And I think that's again, one of the things that I hope people are taking out of this, is that we we don't walk alone. We have stories that intersect, in a lot of ways. And I think that's so important that we learn how to connect, we learn how to communicate and collaborate, and we learn how to work with other people who can, share your walk with you. But
Yeah.
there's also a lot of people just starting that journey, unfortunately, and they have to figure it out. And
Right.
they need people like you. They need people who have, okay, here, this is what I did. This is what I went through. And this is how I succeeded.
And most people only see the end result, although my result will never be final because I'm always working on something. But when I'm, walking into a room or whatever, they see who I am, but they don't realize how much work it took to get to where I am today. And I
Yeah.
think that's a key part that people miss. Don't always look at the person, the CEO, the owner, the head basketball coach, whatever it is,
Right.
as well. Yeah, they're there, but they started as the assistant coach, guaranteed sometime they were an assistant coach.
Yeah.
Well, not guaranteed, but 99% of them have been assistant
Yeah.
coach or a head coach. Head of sports medicine, they started as the GA and worked their way up through the athletic training with the crazy hours. Those the head of sports medicine departments who have huge platforms now, they worked for that.
Yeah.
And they had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. I'll just talk about, myself and Convene. I've been at this 10 years. I've been at this 10 years, and I sat across the table one time at a Panera Bread with this gentleman, and he didn't know my backstory. He didn't know what was going on. He didn't know at the time I was working 24, 26 days a month as an air medical pilot. And this was one of my days off. It was either one of my days off or I was working nights that particular night, because I worked just a tremendous amount of nights. And I was so excited to get with this guy. Great guy. I don't have a bad thing to say, but I sat down with him and I wanted to show him where I was at. And as I was showing him, he said, "Matt, I need to stop you." He said, "Go get a job. Just go work." And I'm like, it was like he took gasoline and he threw it on the fire, and he just lit me up and motivated me even more to
yeah.
succeed and to do this, because I had a job. I was working 15 hours a day, 24, 26 days a month at the time, out of necessity, because the way the economy had been and was. But he just lit my fire. And that was 4 or 5 years ago, right? Probably 5 years ago. And the first experience that I came and wrote in Convene has to do with that and a few other stories, that they did not know that when this happened, that they were watering a seed. That's right, really what they're doing. And that's kind of the same with you,
Yep. Yep.
everything you've been through. Yeah. Well, what a great story. It's really awesome that you're doing all the great things that you're doing. And I want to talk real quick, the next thing, about your mantra.
Oh.
I think this is great. I did. You wrote this down, and I think this is great. So I need to hear what the story behind your mantra.
Yeah. So when people go to my website and they see that our tagline is "Hello, beautiful," sometimes they're like, "Well, that's really shallow." And it's like, yeah, it could be taken that way. But the reason we came up with that is this is the saying that my girls and we all have it on our necklaces and we wear them. But my oldest son's girlfriend, she has one, and then my two girls, and so the four of us. But we say that to one another because so oftentimes, for some reason, girls and females sell themselves so short, and they're only looking at what they classify as beauty, and it's usually external. And what I wanted my girls to do is dig deep and see their internal beauty, so that when they were going through struggles, or somebody maybe doesn't think they look the way that they should, or they're dealing with their body images, that was kind of our mantra. And we knew what it meant. It was our inner. My older daughter is very pretty, and she gets a lot of attention. And she did go through a really hard time with an eating disorder. And I remember just going to her and just saying, "You're like, no, you're beautiful." Like, okay, I'm not going to cry. This is where I'll start crying. No, like, know your beauty. Like, that is not where it's at. That will fade, but who you are is what will hold. Sorry.
Now you're gonna make me cry because I'm soft.
So that's why it's on there. And the funny thing is, my analytical child, my 20-year-old, went on there and he was looking at my website and reading through everything. And he goes, "You need to take that off." And I was like, "Well, why do you think that?" And he said, "I think you're going to turn a lot of women off. I think they're going to just read that and they're going to think it's all about materialism." And I said, "I understand your point." And I debated a long time if I should. But my story is on there. And I actually had a conversation with Grayson, another crazy connection, how I met him through a Nebraska boy who said, "You need to meet this guy." So I meet Grayson, and I was struggling with that issue right at that time. And he's like, "Do you believe it?" And I said, 100%. It's what my girls and I say to one another. Like, it's like a part of our story. And
Yeah.
if someone wants to take time to get to know me, they'll know the meaning behind it. And that's who this site is for. It's
Yeah.
not for the people who read it one time and say, "Well, she's just thinks she's all that, so I'm just going to glaze over it." Is that there's a really, really serious issue going on in our society with women and the way that we view ourselves. And I'm so thankful it's now starting to shift to where athletic and powerful is becoming the new pretty. But it's still hard for that connector when they're all about selfies and they're all about how many likes they get on their social. And that, I didn't do a good job as a mom for a long time, really reeling that in and kind of letting that be her identity for a while. And after you make all these boards and, the Big Ten of Big Ten, whatever that means, it's like that only lasts for such a short time. And what it was doing inside of her was destroying her.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just a very important thing that we all have our mantras.
Yeah.
And it happens to be ours.
I love that. And I talk to my kids about this all the time. And I want to tell one story because I think it goes to, I might end up tearing up here. Something happened to my daughter, my youngest daughter, and it happens, unfortunately a lot when you're talking about the social media and you're talking about all these, different things, is that she had this group of friends when she was in middle school. And this group of friends in middle school, she would post stuff on Instagram like they all do. And they would comment, "Oh, you think you're so pretty. You think you're so cool." So I asked her to write an experience inside of Convene one day. And when we were first getting it up and running, and her name is Lainey, and she was writing it from the point of view of Olivia. And she kept looking at me and going, "Dad, they won't know it's me, will they? They won't know it's me." And then I read what she wrote, and she was writing it from the point of view that, why are they doing this to me?
Yeah.
I'm just like them. Nobody says it to them. And so this group of girls were so brutal, but this was her friend group, supposed to be her friend group. Well, one thing happened last week that this same friend group, she started, going out with this boy, and they went around this group that have been to my house within the last couple of weeks. And this friend group egged her car. And they egged not only her car, but her boyfriend's car, a couple other car, and then this other young lady's car. Right? So let's fast forward. We didn't know who it was. We just figured out it was her friends.
Yeah.
But here's the part that hurts even worse than getting their car egged, right? Is that they went around and apologized to the boys, gave them a card, gave them candy, right? Found out that the other girl who got her car egged was one of Lainey's friends who was with the girls, and they egged her car to throw it off so they wouldn't think that, it was the friend group, right? And then what ended up happening, right, is they gave candy and they gave a card, but there's nothing on her car saying, "I'm sorry." And that's the more hurtful part of this. And so as a young lady, that's painful.
Yeah.
How do you lift somebody up? But it goes back to, I think your mantra is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Your mantra is great. And I would never suggest taking that off of your site. I agree with Grace and Marshall, because it's so important that we lift our kids up, whether that be boys or whether that be our girls, and we let them know that, hey, you are who you are and your beauty is who you are. So, I tell that story to tell you, I'm going to relay that to her because I think it's incredible. I think it's a perfect tagline.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'll change it. I just, I just don't get, it's a tough world that these young ladies live in. They get so much pressure put on, not just young ladies, but all of us, right? But they get so much pressure put on themselves. And it's just, you know, lifting people up. That's really what I'm about. And I think that, I know that's what you're about. And I think that's so important.
Absolutely. And, the more that my girls know to surround themselves by the strongest person in the room, the smartest person in the room, and they will start becoming like them, is so much more important than just finding, like that friend group, just someone that they can put down or bully. Like she knows probably that's not where she fits. She's so much beyond that. And I think that's so important for our kids to know.
Yeah.
One really quick thing is when I work with athletes, 2 different ones that we endorse, they both said the same thing. They have turned off their comments on their social because they don't want their identity to any longer be wrapped up into what fans or external people think.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a very wise thing to do as a young 23, 24-year-old, just getting your fame, right? Where you're probably more positive than negative. But even the positive, they were just saying, the positive ones make us feel we're so much better than we really are. And the negative ones make us feel like we're so much worse than we really are. And I just thought that was such an insightful thing. And, I shared that with my kids a lot too, is if you're feeding off of that, we're giving somebody who doesn't even know anything about you the ability to speak into your life.
Exactly.
Think about that.
And that's the message I told her last night, and not just her, but the social media is you don't any longer have to sometimes look face to face, and I don't have to look you face to face or stand eye to eye with you and say, Shelli, this is what I think about you, right? Because if I had to do that, I'm not hiding behind the phone. I'm not hiding behind that comment that I can put, and that's the danger of everything that goes on today, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm so impressed with you. I love what you do. I look forward to, getting to know you more. So tell everybody where they can go to your website and see that tagline.
Yeah. So it's my name. So ShelliMcClintock.com.
Yeah.
And everything is on that site. We spent a long time making it and creating it, and I'm excited about it. Rolled out my first video this week, and I was scared to death because, like I said, here I am opening my life story up to some people who maybe don't even, have much relationship with me, but already just seeing how it's resonating with people who have a similar experience has been really, really neat to see. So yeah, Shelli. So Shelli's with an I, SELLI, McClintock.com.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we add that to the section when we make the videos out and put this out there for everybody to share and everybody to engage with you and all that. And so I look forward to working with you more. I think this is incredible what you're doing. I love it. Just thank Grace and Marshall for bringing together all these incredible people. And yeah, let's keep the relationship going. And when you come to Wake Forest, we'll meet one day.
There, as soon as they open up sports,
it's killing me. It's killing me. My job is to fly for a Penske NASCAR team. So at least we're opening up NASCAR, but there's no fans. So when there's no fans, there's no need for a helicopter yet. So we'll get back to it. So
yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Shelli. It's been wonderful.